So Mo is there. Hi Mo, how are you?
All right, Ghalib, how you doing, sir?
Good. How are you?
Um, I'm okay. I'm chilling for Friday afternoon. Um,
Okay.
I got a question about the Quran's compilation. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Back then, okay, we understand the claims that Muslims make about their whatever, how they preserved it, and how everything was written on hide and skin and leather and leaves and all that. But looking at the current volume of Quran,
Mm-hmm.
how was it possible that there was so much abundant writing material? I would say, I would not say paper, but writing material back 1400 years ago when none of this was even possible. And secondly, to write nine copies, what Usman claims or he claimed in the books that he made nine copies out of it. How could that be possible? That must be a huge um, cachet of writing material or paper or whatever that was.
But the copies of Quran that were written the both times were written on sheep skin. They were not written on goat skin, I think. They were not written on paper. So the codices that were prepared uh, by uh, by Zad bin Sabit, both of them are mentioned to be written on the skin of an animal rather than on the paper.
So how many sheeps if they had to slaughter to get that much material to be written on nine different copies?
Yeah, they would have required a lot of sheep. Maybe for the whole Quran, maybe they would need I don't know, maybe 100 sheep. Yeah,
Yes, that is a valid question where that
yeah,
material came from.
sure. Because this was the tradition. This is how the New Testament, the best preserved copies of the New Testament, even that we have today, are written on skin of animals. Because the paper, if you write something on papyrus only lives for 100 years. The paper would just disintegrate after 100 years. It wouldn't be
Exactly.
possible if you would touch it, it would just fall apart. Because the paper or the palm leaves or any kind of other things, they are even the paper that the modern paper that we have today, it would be very difficult to keep it intact after very careful preservation or special means after 100 years. So goat skins or the sheep skin was the best available material to preserve writing at that time. The New Testament and the Old Testament manuscripts that we have today, they're also like this. And the Quranic manuscripts that we have today, all the surviving Quranic manuscripts, the earliest surviving Quranic manuscripts, they are written on the skin of animals. That's how it is. And it was bloody expensive to do that
Yes.
because leather was leather was involved in so many things at that time, so many things at that time, that maybe leather was like, you know, I don't know, the leather that we have today, leather would be 100 times more expensive at that time. It would be available, but still it would be expensive.
Now, now,
So
correct
for
me if
this
I'm
sort
wrong.
of thing, it would be too expensive to create just one copy of Quran.
And he created nine identical copies.
Nine,
That's what they
nine
claim.
identical copies. I think it would be a job upwards of $100,000 today.
Uh,
Yeah,
at a minimum.
at that time, if we
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
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 at a minimum, it would be like that. It would be really expensive to do that.
yeah. And please correct me if I'm wrong here. The oldest manuscript of Quran that they have in some museum in England
Mhm.
or Britain, I'm not sure, that is only 800 years old or some 800 some years old. And even that is not complete. It's only a portion of the entire copy. Nobody has those old copies. First of all, if it's true that it was written and nine copies were made, I'm pretty sure they must be disintegrated or something, but somebody should have something. I mean, nine
Hmm.
copies, they were distributed all around the Muslim world at that time. So if I understand Iraq had their library burned, but Syria might have it. Um, Jerusalem may have some. Uh, Even Saudi Arabia should have some. And nobody could produce those original 1400-year-old copies. Though the claim that they are making, they don't even let us do or let anybody touch it, come near to it to do some carbon dating, some
Hmm.
proof, some evidence that it is from that time. So to me, when I hear, I mean, all these stories are fine and dandy. I
Hmm.
accept, but show the copies. Copies are nowhere to be found, and I understand that Egyptians had a high tech of their time, a version of making certain kind of paper, which was not exactly a paper, but it was. But I don't think that anybody could have brought all that to Mecca or Medina or wherever Ottoman was to write them write it on them papers. Do you think?
There could have been paper in Makkah or Medina, but the problem is that if there was, that paper wouldn't survive the next 100 years. That's the problem. Preservation is a problem. We are not saying that there wouldn't be paper available to the Muslims because they ruled Egypt and they ruled Damascus and they were ruling Basra very early on, and those were great cities of that time. And I think there would be people who would be preparing paper there. There would be people writing there, but the problem is that any of the copies that were prepared in those times in on and the only paper that was available was papyrus. And
Hmm.
papyrus, it's very difficult to preserve papyrus beyond 100 years because it just disintegrates. It becomes so dry, it catches fungus, or it can become so dry that you would just even touch it and it would just disintegrate. So that's the problem. So the only thing that can be preserved was on the skin of animals, because leather survives for a very, very long time. The leather copies of the Old Testament and the New Testament that were created almost 2000 years ago, they exist even today, though a lot of special care has to be taken with those, but they exist to this day. So leather maybe would exist for at least 3 4 thousand years, we don't know, even without preservation, because we got a lot of material from Qumran and the Dead Sea Scrolls and every those places. We got a lot of things from there, and all
Right.
of that material that is preserved is basically on the skins of animals. But the problems with Quran is that there is not only the problem of preservation. The problem is that there was no proper script of Arabic at that time. The Hijazi script is the true scripta defectiva. It has so many problems that if you don't know the Quran already, you wouldn't be able to understand what it says. And we don't know uh, that how can we say that what we know is true without the written form? That's the bigger problem.
Now,
So
now
we
there
cannot
are
trust that we cannot. There is no possibility that the Quran might have transmitted properly throughout the
exactly.
history, because that's a big problem.
Well, I would like to draw your attention on the chronology of the Quran.
Mhm.
The way it was revealed is not the way it was compiled. And
Yeah.
now, who decides what chapter or what verse would go first, and what chapter, verse, or what have you would go towards the end? Now, this is again another thing
Uh-huh.
because I always wondered, and I've been wondering this for the last 20 years, that if somebody would have to read Quran according to the way it was revealed, the truth comes out. There's no hiding. You can see how soft and easy and short the Meccan verses or chapters were, and how Medinian verses were. So that is right there a litmus test for anybody who's really seriously trying to understand and study Quran. That would
Mhm.
show how Muhammad kept on changing. And here, the classic example, and for which this great gentleman, he got attacked too, Salman Rushdie,
Yeah.
who wrote about satanic verses. Now, look at the satanic verses, look how it was revealed. And Muslims love to talk about context. Well, let's talk about context here. Let's talk about the context, how it was revealed and how it was compiled. The way the compilation is concerned, within the first paragraph, it says this book has no flaw, and it's only for the
Yeah.
people who want to seek guidance. I mean,
Yeah.
what kind of this is a joke, really.
Yeah.
That was
This
actually,
this is a huge. This is just a lie.
and
How
it's a joke.
can?
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's a joke
That's
played
a lie.
by Ottoman or whoever that was who was trying to compile the Quran. So if we really look at the the chronology of all those chapters and verses, everything is in black and white.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
another
That's
thing
the
that
main problem.
I always think about, okay, even if sheepskin or goat skin were there, and today's script is not what it used to be 1400 years ago. Today's pens are much more advanced, finished, and what have you. The pens that they had back then were the feathers of a bird, and with those feathers of the bird, how much finer could you write? And writing on a sheepskin or goat skin with the feather, how many? First of all, how many feathers would you need? How much ink
Mhm.
would you need? How much sheep or lamb skin you might need for that? So, to me, it doesn't add up. Somebody may have a better explanation than I would on this one here.
Yeah, because I told you that for a copy of Quran, there it could be maybe upwards of a 50 sheep skins or goat skins because they weren't writing in a very small letters. They were writing in huge, large letters, and the Quran they used to make was this thick. All the earliest copies of Quran that are made on goat skin or sheep skin are this thick because leather is always thick. It wouldn't be, I think it would be at least 2 millimeters thick. 2 millimeters would be the minimum that you would be able to get out of leather. So if the copy has maybe maybe two sides and you're writing and you have maybe 300 pages, then it would be so large. And as you rightly mentioned, none of these copies is complete. All the copies that we have, some copy would be 40%, someone would be 50%. Rarely you would get a copy of Quran that has more than 70% of the total Quran that we have today. So it's a huge thing. It's not possible to preserve it in the same way as we think. So more is dropped. Yeah. So it's almost impossible to do that.